Hey everybody, I'm BOOGIE, aka the Terrible Australian of Supermastery.com, and welcome to my video review of Inherent Vice, which is the brand new film from acclaimed writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson, the man behind so many fantastic films like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, The Master, and as well as the Oscar-winning There Will Be Blood. So let's get right into it. Now, before I go into my review of the film, I am not going to actually tell you the synopsis of the film. I'm actually going to be putting that on the page for this review, so you can check that out. You can read that before watching this review, before you watch the rest of this review. Because the main thing is because I don't want to spend too much time just, going over the plot. And believe me, you do not want me to do that for this film, because it would be a challenge to describe the plot of this film, so I'm not going to even attempt to do it. So I won't be saying the synopsis for this film, and also for other films I'll be talking about in future video reviews. But they will be on the pages, so you can check those out. Now, every time that Paul Thomas Anderson has a film coming out, it's pretty much a huge celebration among film fans, and myself included, because I can consider myself a fan of his work, and it's always like he's one of the best directors working today, because he's a guy who's just made nothing but great film after great film after great film, and some of them just bona fide classics, and some of them have made my top 10 best of films of their respective years. And I was looking forward to this one as well, but I must admit, though, that I wasn't really sold much on the trailer, mainly for the fact that something about the humor of the trailer kind of really rubbed me the wrong way, and to be honest, I was expecting this to be another Grand Budapest Hotel, where I wasn't really that much of a fan of the trailers, and then when the actual film came out, I just ended up not liking the film at all, because of its, the quirky humor and offbeat humor and all that, because it just didn't work for me, and I was worried that it might be the same for this film as well. But surprisingly, I actually ended up really enjoying the film. Like, it's definitely Paul Thomas Anderson's most entertaining film as well. And what I really liked about this film is that he does a really good job at mixing two different sort of genres of film and mashing them together pretty well, which is the sort of mystery noir and sort of the stoner comedy, and sort of combining those two together. But I don't want to give all too much credit for him, because the film is based on a book by Thomas Pynchon, I believe that's his name, so forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. But I hear that this film is very close to the source material, so it's a pretty faithful adaptation from what I've heard. I haven't read the book, so I can't really say for certain, but from what I heard, it's very faithful and captures the tone of the book. And I thought Anderson did a really good job at sort of creating that balance between these two different types of genres pretty well, because they could easily kind of not work, but him being a really great director, he managed to make that work. And what was great, though, is him actually letting loose for a change. Usually with Anderson, he makes very deep, very thought-provoking films that sort of tackle very interesting themes and ideas, but this one is just a straight up mystery, and he has a lot of fun with the story, and also he has these really great characters within it that bring so much to the story, and they're all great and unique in their own way. But of course, but it's all anchored together, of course, by Joaquin Pheonix, who plays the role of Doc, or who's our main protagonist, and I thought he did a really good job. And it was good just to see him having fun as well, because he's an actor who takes his work very seriously. But it was good just to see him have, letting loose and really delving into this character of Doc. And what I also really liked about the character of Doc is that even though he is a stoner, he is a hippie, and he does enjoy his drug taking and all that. But at the same time, he's a very good and very well dedicated private investigator. He's good at his job. He's not stupid at all. And like any other film, they probably would have played up that sort of like bumbling sort of private eye type thing. But I like the fact that both Anderson and Pheonix sort of don't go into that direction with the character, and I just found the character really interesting, and I love just any time Pheonix is on screen, he just does a really good job. But he's also anchored by a really great supporting cast as well. It's got a huge cast, but you would expect that in an Anderson film because he does a great job at balancing sort of ensemble pieces. You got Owen Wilson, Reese Witherspoon, Benicio del Toro, Jena Malone, Martin Short, Eric Roberts, Michael Kenneth Williams, and so many more, who some of these actors do just appear in sort of one scene roles, but for a fact that all the actors are very dedicated to their parts and they make the most of their roles, and each of them end up being really memorable, and they play their parts just perfectly, and they just fit in tone with this story. And of course, Anderson does a great job with the direction of the film. His script is well written. It has great production and costume design as well. It captures the period of 1970 perfectly without it being too overdone. Like, it's not like a situation like American Hustle, where they sort of went all out and with their sort of how the 70s looked in their film. Not the same, but these two films are completely different from each other. But I like how in this film, the sort of the 70s aspect of the setting is kind of really downplayed. So it's not too overbearing and just not too showy, if that makes any sense. It's appropriate for the time period, and it's believable. And also the cinematography by Robert Elswit is exquisite as always. I mean, he is a great cinematographer, and the movie just looks gorgeous. It's just so beautifully shot. It's very simple in the way that it sort of composites the shots and the framing, but it's just a gorgeous looking film. And of course, Johnny Greenwood, who also scored There Will Be Blood, and I believe he scored The Master as well, so I could be wrong about that, so forgive me if I've got that wrong. And he does a really good job with the score in this film as well. It's just really, really well done. Now, in terms of negatives, even though I did enjoy the film, I must admit it's definitely not my favourite of Anderson films. It's probably my least favourite of his. That's not to say it's a bad film at all, but it's still a solid, good film. But my main complaint with this film is that it's probably one of the most convoluted and incoherent films I've seen in a long time. Like, I actually, I heard from a lot of people said that it's a film that it'll be very hard to follow, and you got to really stay attention to, because there's just so many plots, subplots, and I thought, okay, maybe it won't be so bad. And for a while there, I actually was able to follow it pretty easily, and then around the sort of halfway point, I just had no idea what was going on. There was just so much plot, and I just couldn't keep up with what was happening. And usually with any other film, I would find that really irritating. But at the same time, it didn't, even though that did bother me, but it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. And at the same time, I was still enjoying the ride anyway. And I was kind of still taking in, where on earth this story is going to go. So in that way, it still kept my interest. But it was still pretty confusing, and I might have to, even looking up the entire plot on the Wikipedia page, I was still even confused even after reading that. So maybe so it's probably a film I probably need to watch again just to make sure, like so I can figure out exactly what's going on and like which character and like which, yeah, it's just I'm getting tongue tied at the moment because it is a very sort of convoluted film, but I can, and it's a film I definitely want to check out again at some point just to sort of see like if it's much more easier to follow on repeated viewings. And the only other really sort of major negative thing is that I think it's a bit too long. It goes for nearly 2.5 hours, and I don't feel like a film like this needs to go that long. I think if it sort of cut out maybe probably 20-30 minutes out of it, I think it would have been much better, because it does tend to drag at certain points as well. And the only other thing is, like, I feel like even though I think all the cast do a really good job in their roles, I do feel some of them were a bit underused. Like Reese Witherspoon, she does a really good job in this film, and I feel like she was a bit, underused. And some of the actors were. Benicio del Toro, he was really good as well. He's a bit underused, and a few others as well, but they do all make the most of their roles. But at the same time, I would have liked to have seen more of them, though. And so, overall, why I do have problems with the film, particularly, the sort of incoherentness of the plot. Overall, I did really enjoy it. And it's definitely a film that's going to ask a lot of the audience, and because of how it sort of, how it presents its story in a very sort of convoluted way. But I think that was the point of what Anderson was doing, and from what I hear, it's the same as in the book as well. So I wouldn't blame audiences being very frustrated by this film because of how they approach the story. But I think if you just go along with it, I think you might enjoy it. It's definitely one of Anderson's enjoyable films. Like I said, it's not my favorite. It's definitely my least favorite of the film, but overall, it's still a pretty solid and good film that I recommend to check out, especially if you're a big fan of Anderson's work. So overall, my rating for this film is 3.5 out of 5, and it might go up again on repeated viewings, and so we shall see. Oh, I do want to give a shout out to, among the supporting cast, Josh Brolin, who I thought just after Pheonix gave probably one of the best performances of the film. I thought he was hilarious and just pretty much stole every scene he was in. And also the film is pretty funny as well, so I enjoyed that. It's not a huge laugh fest, but it did make me laugh quite a few times as well. So, yep, so that's the my video review for Inherent Vice. The film's now playing around Australia, so go check it out. And I'll see you all later. See you, everyone. Bye.